Welcome, seekers of knowledge. Welcome, seekers of knowledge, you in whom words ignite the lanterns of consciousness, and whose souls are quenched by the wellspring of wisdom. Here, within the halls of Millennium Library, we embark together on a unique journey through the paths of letters and the labyrinthine corridors of ideas. This is not just a podcast, it is a cultural edifice that rises with you, from you, and for you. We are here to revive the worlds of novels, to delve into the depths of stories, and to present you with the treasures of classic literature, transcending the boundaries of time and space. Every voice you hear, every word that touches your ears, is the fruit of a joint effort, a human and artistic legacy born from the pristine collaboration between a creative human mind and promising artificial intelligence. We have worked together to transform these timeless literary masterpieces, which are now in the public domain, into captivating audio experiences, reaching you pure, clear, and rich. This work, in all its details, is the property of Millennium Library. All broadcasting and production rights are reserved to it, and everything you hear is part of this cultural legacy that we offer to the world. We kindly ask you to enjoy this unique experience and contribute to spreading the light of knowledge while respecting the ownership and rights of this creative production. Millennium Library, where human and artificial intelligence meet to create an enduring legacy. Join us now in this great auditory adventure. A story told by a Hindu. Once upon a time, there was a Raja who had two sons, and after their father's death, they divided the kingdom between them. The two brothers were inveterate gamblers and spent their time playing cards with each other. For a long time, fortune was equal. But one day it turned against the elder brother, and he lost and lost until his money and his jewelry, his horses and his elephants, and everything that he had been won by his younger brother. Then, in desperation, he staked his share in the kingdom, and that, too, he lost. Then the younger brother sent drummers through the city to proclaim that the whole kingdom was his. The shame of this was more than the elder prince could bear. So he resolved to quit the country, and he told his wife of his intention and bade her stay behind. But his faithful wife refused to be parted from him. She vowed that he had married her not for one day, nor for two, but for good and all, and that where he went, there she would go, and whatever troubles he met, she would share. So he allowed her to come with him, and the two set off to foreign parts. After some time, their path led them through an extensive jungle, and after traveling through it for 2 days, they at last lost their way completely. Their food gave out. They were faint with starvation and torn with briars. The prince urged his wife to return, but she would not hear of it, so they pushed on, supporting life on jungle fruits. Sometimes the prince would go far ahead, for his faithful wife could only travel slowly, and then he would return and wait for her. At last he got tired of leading her on and made up his mind to abandon her. At night they lay down at the foot of a tree, And the prince thought, if wild animals would come and eat us, it would be the best that could happen. I cannot bear to see my wife suffer any more. Although her flesh is torn with thorns, she will not leave me. I will leave her here. May wild beasts kill both her and me, but I cannot see her die before my eyes. So, thinking, he got up quietly and went off as quickly as he could. When the princess woke and found that she had been abandoned, she began to weep and wept from dawn to noon without ceasing. At noon, a being, in the guise of an old woman, appeared and asked her why she wept, and comforted her, and promised to lead her out of the wood, and told her that Chando had had compassion on her, and would allow her to find her husband again if they both lived. So saying, the old woman led the princess from the forest, and showed her the way to a great city where a Rajah lived. The princess went begging her way through the city to the Rajah's palace, and there they engaged her as a servant. Now her husband had also escaped from the jungle and sought employment as a laborer, but no one would give him work for more than a day or two. And at last his search for work brought him to the city in which the princess was, and there he was engaged as a groom in the palace stables. The prince had changed his name, and he had no chance of knowing that his wife was in the palace, because she was confined to the women's apartments. So some years passed without their having news of each other. At last, one day, the princess happened to go on to the roof, and looking down at the stables saw and thought she recognized her husband. Then she leaned over and listened till she heard his voice, and at that she was sure that it was he. So she hastened to the Rajah and begged to be allowed to meet her husband. And the Rajah sent to call the Sis with the name which the princess had given, but no one came, for the prince would not reveal himself. Then the princess told their story, and how her husband had gambled away his half of the kingdom. The Rajah ordered any one with such a history to come forward, as his wife was in the palace, but the prince did not reveal himself. Then the princess said, "Let all the Sisis cook rice, and bring me a bit of each man's cooking to taste." They did so, and when she tasted the rice cooked by her husband, she at once said that it was his. Her husband was unable to deny it, and admitted everything. Then they took him away from his work in the stables, and let him live with his wife. After a time, the Rajah wrote to the younger brother asking whether he would restore the half of the kingdom which he had won. And the younger brother answered that he would gladly do so, if his brother would sign an agreement never to gamble any more. It was with this object in view, and to teach him the folly of his ways, that he had dispossessed him. The elder brother gladly gave the required promise, and returned to his kingdom with his faithful wife, and lived happily ever afterwards. The Rybar and the Leopard. Once upon a time a Rybar was going backwards and forwards between two families, arranging a marriage, and part of the road which he used to travel ran through a forest. One day, as he was going to the bride's house, he took a sack with him, intending to try and get the loan of some Indian corn from the bride's relations. But as he was passing through the piece of jungle, he suddenly met a leopard. He was terribly frightened, but collecting his wits, he addressed the animal thus: "Leopard, I beg you not to eat me. I am engaged on a work of great merit. I am making two men out of one." This address amazed the leopard, and he at once asked the Rabar whether he could make him into two, and promised that if he could his life should be spared. The Rabar answered readily, "Seeing that in pursuit of my profession I have made two men out of one all over the country, of course I can make you into two leopards if I try. All you have to do is to get into this sack and keep quiet. If you utter a sound you will spoil the charm." "Well," said the leopard, "I will try and see. I undertake to keep quite quiet, and if you are successful, I promise to tell the whole race of leopards to spare the lives of Rabars." So saying, the leopard jumped into the sack and allowed the man to tie him up tightly in it. No sooner was this done than the Rabar took the sack on his head and carried it to the bank of a river, and having given it 2 or 3 hearty whacks with his stick, threw it into the water. The sack went floating down the stream, and it happened that lower down a leopardess sat watching the water, and when she saw the sack coming along, she thought that it was a dead cow floating down. So when it came near, she jumped into the water and pulled it ashore. She then proceeded to tear open the sack, when out jumped the first leopard. He soon explained how he came to be in the sack, and declared that the Rabar's promise had been fulfilled, and that she was his destined mate. The leopardess agreed, and the two set to work to tell all the other leopards what had happened, and what a kindness the Rabar had done them. And so it came to pass that to the present day leopards never interfere with Rabars when they are going about arranging a marriage. No one ever heard of one being injured. Meanwhile, the Rabar went on his way, rejoicing at having rid himself of the leopard. But the next year, while engaged on the business of another marriage, the Rabar was passing through the same jungle when he came face to face with the very leopard that he thought he had safely disposed of. He at once took to his heels, but the leopard called out to him not to be afraid and to wait, as he had something to say to him. So the Rabar stopped, and the leopard asked whether he did not recognize him. The Rabar stoutly denied all knowledge of him. "Well," said the leopard, "I am the leopard of whom you made two out of one, and to show my gratitude I will give you any reward you like. Would you like a cow or a deer or any other animal? I will kill you one and bring it to you." When the Rabar saw the turn that things had taken, he thought that he had better take advantage of it. So he asked for a good large nilgai. The leopard told him to come to a certain tree at noon the next day, and he would find the animal there. So they separated, and the next day at noon the Rabar went to the tree and found a fine nilgai waiting for him, which he and his friends took home and ate with joy. The Ungrateful Snake. There was once a Rajah and his Diwan, and they each had one son. These sons were married in infancy, but as they grew up, they never heard anything about their having been married. When the boys reached manhood and found no arrangements being made for their weddings, they began to wonder at the delay and often talked about it. And in the end, they agreed to run away to another country. Soon after this resolve of theirs, some horse dealers came to their home with horses to sell. The two youths at once saw that if they could each have a horse and learn to ride it, it would be easy for them to run away from home. So they hurried to their fathers and begged them to buy them each one of the beautiful horses which the dealers had brought. The Rajah and the Diwan did not like to disappoint their sons, so they bought the horses, to the great delight of the boys, who used to ride them every day. One day the Rajah's son was out riding by himself, and he passed by a tank where a number of women and girls were bathing and drawing water. As he came galloping along, the women ran back in a fright, and as they could not draw their water. While he was there, an old woman came up to him and told him to go away and not stay making eyes at the girls, as if he had no wife of his own. "What wife have I?" said the prince. "I know nothing of having been married." "You were married, sure enough, when you were an infant," replied the old woman. "Your wife is still in her father's house, but now that you have grown up, they will probably bring her home to you this year." Then the prince asked where his wife lived, and having learnt the name of the village, he galloped off home, and at once began to question his mother about his marriage. His mother told him that they intended to have the bride brought home that year, but the prince was impatient and proposed that he should go off at once to his father-in-law's and see his wife, and try to persuade them to let her come back with him without any ceremony. His mother made no objection. So he got ready for the journey and started off on horseback. He had not gone far when he saw a field of thatching grass on fire, and in the middle, surrounded by the flames, was a huge poisonous snake, unable to escape. As the prince rode by, the snake called out to him, "Prince, you are going joyously to bring home your bride, and here am I in danger of being burned alive. Will you not have pity on me and save me? If you do, I will confer a boon on you." "But if I save you," objected the prince, "you will only eat me. Snakes do not know what gratitude is." "I am not of that kind," answered the snake. "Here I am, in danger of death. I beseech you to have pity on me." These pleadings prevailed, and the prince got off his horse and beat out the fire, and then spread a cloth over the embers, so that the snake could crawl out. When the snake was safe, the prince asked for the boon that had been promised him. "No boon will you get," said the snake. "You did a foolhardy thing in saving me, for now I am going to eat you, and you cannot escape from me." The prince saw that there was little hope for him, but he begged the snake to allow 2 or 3 judges to decide whether it was fair that he should be killed after what he had done. The snake agreed to this, provided that the judges were not human beings. He was willing to be bound by the opinions of anyone else. They set out together to look for judges, and soon saw a herd of cattle resting under a banyan tree by a pool of water. So they agreed to make these their judges. Then the prince explained to one of the cows and the banyan tree and the water what they were to decide: whether it was fair for the snake, whose life he had saved, now to want to kill him. The banyan tree was the first to answer. It said, "You did good to the snake, and your wages for doing good are evil. You saved his life, and he will now kill you. This is fair. This is the justice we have learned from human beings. You enjoy the shade of us trees, and in return you lop off our branches and sit on them, and do us all manner of injury. It is right that the snake should eat you." Then the prince turned to the cow. "He may eat you," answered the cow. "The tree is right. See how men treat cattle. You drive away our calves from us, and take our milk, and you beat us, and make us work hard. For all this ill treatment the snake shall eat you." Then the prince asked the water what it had to say. "I agree with the other two," said the water. "To return evil for good is the justice of mankind. It is by drinking water that your very lives are preserved. Yet you spit into it and wash dirty things in it. Shall not the snake return you evil for good?" So judgment was delivered, and the snake wanted to eat the prince. But the prince asked the tree and the cow and the water to listen while he made one prayer. He told them how he had been married when he was too young to know anything about it, and how he was going for the first time to see his wife when this misfortune befell him. So he begged that he might be allowed to go and see his bride, and then be eaten on his way back. The banyan tree asked what the snake thought about this proposal, and the snake said that it would make no objection if the tree and the cow and the water would be sureties for the return of the prince within 3 days. So the prince promised them faithfully that he would return, and they let him go. The prince rode on to his father-in-law's house, and when he arrived, a bed was brought out for him to sit on, and he was asked where he came from. When he explained who he was, they at once brought water and washed his feet, and then gave him oil and a toothstick and took him to bathe. Then they brought him curds and dried rice to eat, and afterwards killed a goat, and made a feast, and showed him every honor. That evening, as his wife was rubbing his arms and legs, the prince remained silent and downcast, and showed none of the joy of a bridegroom. And when his bride asked what was the matter, he told her that he had only come to see her for one day, and that afterwards she must try and forget all about him. At first he would not tell her more, but when she urged him, he told her how he had to go and surrender himself to the snake on the next day. When she heard this, she vowed that she would go with him and die with him. The next morning came, and the prince said that he must return, and his wife said that she was going with him. So they made everything ready and set out on their way. When they came within sight of the banyan tree where the prince was to be killed, he tried to turn his wife back, but though he used force, she refused to leave him, and said that she would first see him killed and then go home. So at last he let her accompany him. When they reached the tree, she asked to be allowed to go in front and be the first to meet the snake. To this the prince assented. They had not gone far when they saw the snake awaiting them in the path, with its crest raised. And when they drew near, the prince's bride begged the snake to eat her first, as she had nowhere to live if she survived her husband. The snake refused and bade her go home to her parents. She said that that was impossible. They had sold her, and the prince had bought her, in life and in death, bones and ashes. But the snake would not listen and made for the prince to eat him. His wife, however, kept in front of the snake and would not let it pass. She called the banyan tree to witness that the snake should not eat her husband without first killing her. Without her husband, she would have no one to support her. Then the snake promised to teach her an incantation by means of which she could support herself. So saying, the snake conferred some magic power upon and taught her an incantation. and promised her that if she took some dust in her hand and repeated the incantation, and then blew on the dust, any person on whom she sprinkled the dust would at once be burnt to ashes. Then the prince's wife asked how she should restore the people to life, and the snake taught her that also. But she was not satisfied, and said that she must try at once to see whether the snake was deceiving her or no. So the snake bade her experiment on a tarup tree which grew near. Thereupon she gathered up some dust and repeated the incantation and blew on it, and suddenly threw it over the snake, which at once turned to ashes, and that was the end of the snake. Then the prince and his wife went on their way rejoicing, and he was filled with wonder at the way in which his bride had saved him by persisting in going with him. Conclusion of our journey. And so we reach the conclusion of our journey for today, within the unending worlds of words and the never folding pages of knowledge. We have spent an enjoyable and beneficial time together within the embrace of Millennium Library, where voices meet tales and a new cultural legacy is forged. We hope you have enjoyed every moment and delved deeply into the dimensions of the story or novel we presented to you. Always remember that this grand edifice, Millennium Library, is the result of a unique collaboration between human creativity and the profound depth of artificial intelligence. Our goal is to enrich your ears and minds with the treasures of world literature and to make knowledge accessible to everyone, while preserving the ownership rights of Millennium Library for this distinctive production. Don't forget to follow us and activate the notification bell to receive all new content. And share this podcast with everyone around you, for knowledge is light, and together we illuminate the paths. Until we meet again in a future episode and a new literary adventure, may you be in the care and keeping of Allah, and within the realm of immortal words. Millennium Library, where tales are embodied, knowledge is narrated, and creativity is immortalized.